Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the launch webinar for the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund 150th birthday competition. Next slide, please. We've got 4 short presentations which will explain about the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund, what the competition is about, and how you can enter, of course. We'll be hearing from one of the projects that Rees Jeffreys has actually funded, and we're also going to hear about how technology is being used to help safety for pedestrians and other road users. Just a few key housekeeping points before we start. This session is being recorded, and if you have any questions, please put them in the question box, and we hope to respond to those questions after the webinar. We aim to finish at about 11:15. If I can go to the next slide, please. So I was going to kick off by explaining a little bit about the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund. We are a charitable road fund, and we fund projects which are looking at promoting and securing better and safer roads. We do this through funding for providing grants for research and programmes and schemes, some of which are to do with actual schemes on the roads or studies. I'm going to illustrate 1 or 2 studies in a short while. And we fund bursaries for courses leading to qualifications, mainly higher education at the moment. This fund was set up by Rees Jeffreys. He was set the fund up in the 1950s, and he was very interested to see how roads could be developed to help everybody. And at that time it was for motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, all types of roads as well. Looking forward to today, we as the trustees have looked at the objectives that were set out for the fund and have funded a wide range of projects. So here are a list of 6 that we've funded in the last few years, covering a whole range of activities. You can see we've got a study there about dockless bicycle hire, for instance. We've sponsored the Future Transport Visions, and one of our later presentations is from a group explaining their project under that scheme. We also did a major study of major road networks and looked at the sustainability of road safety in local government. And of course, one of our other areas of interest is looking at the roads itself. In this case, it was a project to do with verge management. So you can see that as a series of projects, the fund is interested in a wide range of aspects to do with roads and people. If we move on to the next slide now. We've been concerned and thinking about how best we can use the fund looking forward. So how is the trust developing for the future? We're certainly looking for new ideas. We're looking for innovation and the sorts of ideas that will help develop the future of roads for everybody. We are concentrating on how roads will look in this competition for about 2050. The competition seeking to encourage new and creative thinking from a range of people, from schools to businesses. And I'll explain in a little while what the different sections of the prizes that we're awarding. We want to fund the development of the best ideas and encourage a breadth of thinking for the future. And we think you, from all your different backgrounds, have many ideas that we'll be able to utilise. We will look at those, and as we look at our next slide, this competition is aiming at different areas of our communities. So we've got prizes for primary schools and secondary schools. We're very interested in what the next generation who will be using our roads, whether as pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, on business, how they see the future. We've got a separate section for universities and colleges as well. And we'll also be looking at, hopefully, ideas from SMEs, that's small and medium-sized enterprises and startup companies, a lot of innovation there. And we want to look at ideas from other businesses and public bodies. Of course, we want to hear from the individuals. Much thinking comes from those who are working on their own, as well as those who work in communities and groups. So wherever you come from in that sector, we're looking for the exciting ideas about how we can take roads forwards. Now, clearly, in this competition, we're going to look at prizes for each of those groups, as well as for some of the best ideas. We will be looking at those in terms of future long-term funding, and with the aim that up to £150,000 can be allocated to the development of the best ideas we get from this competition. I hope that when you're considering about how you might compete with your ideas, that you'll bring forward all the thinking. Don't feel constrained about the sorts of things that you can talk about and that you can express. And I know that in the next few sessions, we'll be giving you some ideas about what we think might be the best way of looking for roads in the next 35 years, and possibly even for further as well. Now I'm going to hand over to our fellow trustee, Andy, who's going to explain a bit more about the competition and how he sees the future. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Ginny. Okay, so the competition was set out really to align with Rees Jeffreys' vision that he had, which was about all types of road. And many of you may have parked at a roadside stop that was funded by the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund. Those of you following me on Twitter will see me standing at the top of Reigate Hill talking about one. So Rees Jeffreys was also about the enjoyment of roads. He was a very, very keen cyclist, a very keen walker based on driving to somewhere. So I'd like you to think about that as well in terms of the vision we're going to. Changing behaviour of drivers as we go forward in the future, changing behaviour of road users, very much in terms of the future that we've got, but how do you keep people like me on board? You can see I'm a bit of a petrol head. Some key dates for you. The 22nd of October is the submission date. 15th of November is when we kind of announce the shortlist, and the 1st of December would be the winners for this £5,000 to take you to the next stage. If you have a project that's kind of already done and somebody's asked about oven ready, yes, you can certainly submit that. Just ask yourself the question, how can I best align this to what Rees Jeffreys wants, what the Road Fund wants, and how might I use the funding if I got it to get ready for the big question. We've got 5 grants of 5,000 to develop those ideas better towards the 150,000 prize, and then we've got prizes for schools, which are £5,000 for the age groups, and then 4 £2,000 prizes. Very keen that those of you who are in industry can help schools if you're in the STEM way of doing things. And there'll be other prizes that we'll announce over the time specifically for particular categories. Just to highlight, if you're a local authority, please do enter that's out of the business area. And if you want to enter more than one, if you're an individual, if you want to enter more than one idea, that's fine, but please make sure they're very different from one another. Don't try and submit the same idea with a slightly different title. We will notice. That's probably enough about the competition as it is between Ginny and I. There is a whole lot of stuff on the document to download. Please do download it and read it. It's got all the details, all the rules. If that's then unclear, please come back. There's an email and there's a web question, and there's even a phone number. You can use the old-fashioned telephone. What we're looking for, we are looking for something different. We're looking for a good idea, creatively and well presented. And one of the things I've said is, try and avoid using a PowerPoint deck if you can. Try and do something imaginative. So in terms of imagination, I've got this book, which I'm going to hold up, which is written in 1971, and it's all about the future of transport. So it's 50 years old. And it cost 16 shillings, which is sort of 80p for those in new number. And I bought it at a jumble sale for 75p, so they are depreciated. But in this picture, in this book, is a load of lovely pictures of things like urban traffic control systems, about computers used in traffic. It's got pictures of self-driving cars that will be in wide use by 1981. And above all, it's got pictures about some of the challenges that will be faced with emissions, congestion and pollution in the future. also got some solutions, and here's two of the solutions. If you can see it on the right hand side is mini roundabouts that have been tested at TRL. Well, we've got those, and on the left is the self-driving hovercraft that also becomes a rail train. Didn't quite see that one catch on. So what would be your way that you would present your vision and your new ideas of the future? In 1971, it was a paperback book, which is well thumbed and falling to bits. What's your 2021 way of doing it? You could do anything if you're a school that aligns with the curriculum or what you want to do in terms of enticing people into STEM and exciting them. But please don't submit something that's more than 3 minutes long. So if it's a video or a song or a play or something, don't submit them more than 1,500 words, and don't submit more than 10 megabytes of other stuff. So if you're doing a 3D fly-through simulation, don't send us the entire file, send us a video. We think that this is really exciting. We think that we've opened up a whole area here about the enjoyment of all roads for the future, but also the challenge of how we're going to deal with things like decarbonisation. You'll notice from the judges we're a very broad spectrum. We like to reflect that broad spectrum of our interests in the sort of areas that we're looking for you to submit ideas in. So don't let the word road fund put you off. It's not all about roads. It could be about cycling, automotive, comms, apps, new ways of changing behaviour. The world is really your oyster. But as long as it aligns with the idea of our founder that roads are worth investing in, you can do some very interesting looking up Rees Jeffreys if you want to get some idea of what he was all about. One of his quotes is, "The best way to look at the quality of a road is from a cycle," and that was in 1900. The other thing that I think we'd really like you to do is to be creative and imaginative, because what we've got here is an opportunity to sell things outside the roads, traffic, automotive sector. So what you can do to grab people's imagination would be great. So the world is open to you. Please do submit something. And if you have any questions, please come back to us. I've also been looking at the questions that's on the chat. I'll try and catch those at the end. But the next people we're going to hear from are two of the recipients of some funding from Rees Jeffreys. And it was a competition I was very proud to be a judge on, which was about the future visions. And I won't steal their thunder by telling them what their submission's about. But when I read through it, I wasn't just judging it, I was actually learning. And to me, that's a very, very good test of whether somebody's achieved their objectives. So I'm going to pass now to Molly and Marie, and they're going to tell you about their Rees Jeffreys funded success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everyone. I am Marie Godward, and I'm a transport planner at Mott MacDonald.
Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Hoggard, and I'm also a transport planner at Mott MacDonald.
So today we're going to talk you through the website that we co-created with Laura Brooks of WSP, with funding from the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund and supported by the Future Transport Visions Group. So the website, oh, sorry, next slide, please. And next slide, please. So the website that we created is the Gender Equality Toolkit in Transport, or the GET IT for short, and we made it to encourage and help transport professionals to better incorporate gender mainstreaming into their day-to-day work. So for some background context, our research is something that we did in our own time over 12 weeks. So the FTVG was established to run as an annual competition to incentivise early career professionals to work collaboratively and with someone outside of their own organisation to submit a presentation or product that responds to the challenges and opportunities posed by ongoing changes in the transportation industry. So we developed a research proposal and submitted it to the FTVG, and we were granted £3,000 from the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund to execute the work over a set 12-week period. So we used the funding to pay for different software licenses, to be able to carry out interactive workshops, to kind of design out what we wanted our toolkit to be. We also used it to fund our graphic design work on the website to make sure we got our message across clearly. And finally, we used some of the funding to provide focus group incentives for attendees who gave us feedback on our toolkit to make it as good as it could be. So I'll now pass over to Molly, who will talk you through our final submission piece.
Thanks, Marie. Next slide, please. So using this funding from Rees Jeffreys really enabled us to create the Gender Equality Toolkit in Transport, which is an online platform that hosts a supportive toolkit filled with a whole range of guidance and recommendations. It's been really well received by the transport professionals, and thanks to Andy for those kind words at the beginning. And since publishing, we've spoken to several local authorities and interested parties about how their work could better incorporate the needs of women and non-binary people. Crucially, without the funding, none of this would have been possible. We wouldn't have been able to create the platform or go on to have these conversations with others in the industry. The funding's really allowed us to raise an awareness and to shine a light on the issue of gender equality within transport. It's opened many doors for us in our work, and we're very grateful to have had and also to still be having these experiences. The funding enabled us to go above and beyond our initial idea and do more than what we ever expected. It's really helped us to think differently, and it gave us that support outside of our day jobs to create an accessible site with the aim to improve UK transport and create inclusive transport systems. So we'd really recommend getting involved and going for the funding. I think you'll be really surprised at where the support can lead to, and it's a really great opportunity to do something outside of your day job. That's it from us. I'll now hand over to Andrew Caleya, Chetty. Thanks very much.
Hi everyone. I'm going to give you a little insight into Starling Technologies. Can I have the next slide, please? And the work that we're doing that I think reflects something something around what everyone has said so far. So Starling Technologies, new company, primarily technology. Our mission is to revolutionize as much as we can pedestrian and cyclist safety at junctions, crossings, and across roads, just to make our towns and our cities safer and more desirable places to be. Can I have the next slide, please? We are a bit of technology. It is probably the high-end element of the technology, which basically means that we have a computer vision machine learning product. We detect, track, and translate all of those objects. We build up predictive behavior of all of those users. And then we do two things. We can make decisions and activate signaling systems, or we can make that data available either in near real time, or historical. And then that data either becomes insights to do something with, or to be added to kind of larger city flow analysis. Can I have the next slide, please? So Starling Intelligence is the product I'm going to focus in on. This is basically doing all the tracking and then making comprehensive data available that is as much about numbers, about counting, as it is about understanding the behavior that the system is seeing. Can I have the next slide, please? So why is this important? Okay, so for me, this is the really interesting. Of course, I can talk about the product and what we do and how we do it and the benefits, but actually the driver of why this is important is really important. I'm a cyclist. I'm a cyclist commuter, and I'm a cyclist at weekends. So I care about the roads and what happens when I travel intercity on my bike using kind of multimodals. Cities are changing. They are needing to diversify, move away from a solely vehicle-centric and bringing together that what public transport, pedestrians and cyclists with will help cities with pollution and better air quality. So all of this stuff is really important. I think for me, the validation using this technology allows you to evaluate and validate the temporary networks, as well as give you data and stakeholder management tools and information that you can deal with the communities and your stakeholders, your investors. I think what's important here is that with the government's active travel policy, how do local authorities understand that they are getting value and they can engage with the communities around either their temporary or their permanent network. Can I have the next slide, please? So we did just want to briefly touch on a little project that we did at Abbey Road, which clearly is where we used the zebra crossing that the Beatles used, using a public webcam from EarthCam. Next slide, please. And so what I'm about to show, if you can click on this, what I'm about to show you is a very short video of us. It's an enhanced video, so we've added graphics to it, but just to illustrate what this does. Now, again, think of this as you're watching, this is about trying to understand what is happening. And so there's lots of systems out there that count. You can count things, but actually, can you go further than counting? Can you understand behavior, and can you understand and what over time, what do you get to understand from that behavior? And I think what's really important and what's quite exciting for me about this project is about this funding initiative is that you are able to look, rather than being focused solely maybe on business or technology or market readiness, but working in collaboration with communities, the full spectrum of organizations, you're able to kind of use this funding to really communicate, learn, as well as do. And I think for me, that is really the exciting bit of this fund. And I guess for an SME, again, having access on this staged way, having access to communities is a great way of fostering new ideas and putting them into the real world. So that's a little bit about Starling Intelligence and what we're doing. Thank you very much. I will hand over to the next speaker.
Thanks very much, Andrew. That was brilliant. The reason that I asked Andrew to talk about that was because I think you can see there a way of demonstrating a new idea very quickly and very, very sharply, but with a bit of an angle, which is if you think of a pedestrian crossing in the UK, you think of Abbey Road if you're a certain age, and therefore using that is a good idea. Also, was it me or did I spot a unicyclist crossing that pedestrian crossing? I think it's the first time I've ever seen a unicyclist use a pedestrian crossing. But the key point there is good. Thank you. I wasn't imagining it. The key point there is that it's got a project, it's got an idea. I'm sure it'd be submitting something that's visual, interesting. All right, you've got a few PowerPoints behind it, but it's worth looking at. It's based around cities. We're not just fixed on cities. There are more accidents in rural roads, etc., etc. Please don't think because you've seen a few city things today, it's just around cities. Because we mentioned unicycles doesn't mean that we want everything to be about unicycles. We are interested in cars, trucks, motorcycles, horses, anything that moves on roads. But also just in terms of just thinking about the presentation there, quite a complicated project, but presented really well. So thank you to Andrew for coming on. I'm sure we'll be seeing his presentation later on in the competition. So what Ginny and I are going to do now is just spend the last few minutes just discussing some of the things that Rees Jeffreys has funded in the past. Now, past performance is no guide to future, as they say in all the finance things. So just because we funded something in the past doesn't mean we'll do it again. It also doesn't mean that we want more like that. But it's to give you some idea, one of the things that trustees are pretty proud of is that we fund things that nobody else will fund. So we've done some things like the Major Road Study, which was a big project that's now looked at the future road networks that we need. But we've also funded, as you saw from the future transport visions, just very small projects, but we've been getting really good value for money. So please don't think from what you've seen today that we're either just a big project funder or a small project funder. We're a good project funder, and we look at the value of everything. Sometimes we get people asking us for £1,000. Sometimes we get people asking us for £250,000, and we funded both. So Ginny, as you're the chair of the judges, maybe it's worth just saying some of the things that you've been involved in with Rees Jeffreys in the past, and then I'll cover some of the things I've been involved in.
Yes, we've been, as I said before, quite a range of projects. I remember down local authority roads, they cover all rural roads, streets, access roads, all sorts of roads, and they often are looking for that little bit of support in terms of their communities. So communities will apply to us and look for some help. In one case, it was about helping them, although they were funding a small improvement within their local community on a through road, what they wanted was some funding to help for some parking, some lay-bys. And that was interesting because that was one of Rees Jeffreys' really interesting thoughts about roads, was that you should also think about how you can enjoy a road actually if you need to take a break. Where can you park? So we funded in the past some lay-bys. Now they might sound rather uninteresting and boring, but the whole point is that with a little bit of extra funding, we can help make it fit into the surroundings a lot better. Equally, we've also helped studies where people have been looking at the safety of their roads, for instance. So they've been worried about speed of vehicles coming through. So how can we help them with a study? So the funding can be about the idea of something as much as it can be about the physical improvement. The other thing that I think is quite important to highlight is that we've also helped fund some projects where people are looking at developing, for instance, training packages. This is very true for things like schools, for use with younger people, whether very young at primary school age or right through community age ranges. So safety is one of those areas that we've tried very hard to put funding into. Rees Jeffreys was very concerned about how safe routes would be, and whilst we might think roads today have all the risks, equally there were many risks back in the 1950s. So safety was very much a key part of what he did. We've also, at the other extreme, looked at some very technical issues. We funded some study into type of bitumen used on road surfacing. Now that isn't something we'd normally do because there's lots of other areas that can fund those. But if there's something unusual in the research area that people can't get funded, then that's the sort of thing that we can help with. It's also worth mentioning here that we don't fund just on our own, so often we'll partner with other people. So if it's a bigger project, the project itself will look for different funders. So please think of us in the context of part funding. So if that helps a little bit, give a breadth to what the Rees Jeffreys trustees are looking for. And looking to the future, as Andy says, we can't emphasise this enough. We don't want to repeat just the past. We want to look at what's new. So we're really interested in those innovative ideas. So please get your thinking caps on.
Absolutely. So I've got a list here I've just been making of slightly wacky projects that Rees Jeffreys has funded. And I would really emphasise, if you're sitting there thinking, I've got this idea, but I'm not sure it would ever get funded, then we are probably the people to try it out on if it's really wacky or novel, and if it's sustainable for the future and that kind of idea. But also if it's something that's based on lessons from the past, ways to keep existing vehicles going, all that kind of stuff we're interested in. So a list of things that I've been particularly interested in is enhanced open maps for cycling and walking based on car parks. We funded a study into storm gullies because apparently that's a big problem in rural areas. And again, nobody really knew what they were, but it's a very convincing case for funding studies into them. I think we're starting to fund a study into motorhome safety, which apparently is becoming a problem. We funded a big project, I think, with the Institute of Advanced Motorists on distraction of in-vehicle systems. That was done by TRL. It's a very useful project. As Ginny said, we've paid a lot of grants to people to improve access to Rees Jeffreys Road Fund sites that were put in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and also now improving access to roadside sites. Again, enjoyment of motoring, but to park and walk and do something while you're there with fund information boards, that kind of stuff. We've also recently funded some videos about littering, roadside littering. The group came to us and said, we've got some wacky videos, but nobody will fund them. Well, we have. And we also in the past have funded some children's podcasts about how roads built. So when you're driving along and your kids say, are we nearly there yet? The answer is no, but listen to this in the Rees Jeffreys Road Fund and become a transport engineer. The other thing I think we should really say is that we are interested in the quality of the idea. So it could be a really well presented, wacky and lovely idea and have the most fundamentally brilliant presentation. But if there isn't a gem of an idea there, then we're not going to be funding that. But equally, if you've got a brilliant idea, please just don't write 1,500 words about it in a really inaccessible style. Please think about the sort of things that we've been explaining today, the sort of things we've been showing. The quality and creativity balance is really how you think where your strengths lie, but please don't just focus on one or the other. And also I think it's really, really important that you think about how the person in the street, the middle-aged petrol head like me, the 17-year-old who's just about to think about driving a car, the disabled person, the elderly person, the person in the city, the person in the rural area, the farmer might get your idea. Please don't try and sell it just to the ex-chief engineer of Highways England that we're speaking to, and myself in Connected Vehicle World, and Steve Gooding, the RIC Foundation. Think about how you would sell it to the person in the street. That would be my acid test. The key thing is that we need to get your submissions in by October the 22nd. We're going to keep saying October the 22nd. There is going to be no, oh, we've just extended the deadline because we haven't got enough submissions. We think we're going to get quite a lot of those. And if you have any questions, please do get them in. So somebody's just asked about, would you encourage me to apply? If I've got a project that's taken 3 years to bake, I want to get it in the hands. Yes, as long as it fits the scope, please do. Generally, the scope is not defined to be a filter or a trap. It's designed to give you some steerage. And I'm expecting that the ideas that aren't in scope would just be more administrative rather than ideas. I'm just going through other questions that people have asked just to make sure I've covered them all. The web address will be on screen to be entered. And I've been told again not to forget to mention the deadline, which is October the 22nd. We do want new ideas, we want novel ideas. Please don't reinvent the wheel. Do test on Google if somebody's already suggested this or if it's been funded. Other search engines are available, but please don't submit something that's already been done, particularly if Rees Jeffreys has already funded it. That could be a bit embarrassing. Please do have a check. What I'd also say is that we've tried to make the application a process really easy. There's not an 8-page form that you might have to fill in on other funders, those of you who know that what I'm talking about. There's not a huge great business case that you have to fill out. There's not a huge great lot of detail about who you are. We've tried to make it very simple so that we can focus on the quality of your idea and the quality of the creativity of your submission. If you want to submit more than one, like I say, please just think about how to make it different from one another. If you're an organisation and you want to submit more than one, there's some rules that we've suggested about that. If you want to go and get your school involved, please do. If you're a governor or a parent-teacher association or just know the teachers well, please do. We've deliberately stratified this so that schools don't feel they're up and competing against industry and local authorities. There's a whole section. The money is distributed in a different way. They can do what they want with the money within reason. I'm hoping a few science labs and drama groups might benefit from that. And the main message is go for it. We really, really want to get 150 good ideas. We've got £150,000 to spend, and it's Rees Jeffreys' 150th birthday next year. And what we're hoping is that early in next year that we've got good enough submissions that we can go forward with that £150,000 prize. And we're really hoping that it's something that, as I say, nobody else might fund. So Ginny, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, just please, I know we're sounding like a record, but please do enter the competition. It's such a wonderful position to be able to fund things, and we'd really like to help those ideas that will be important for the future. So closing date, 22nd of October, don't forget.
Okay, one other question has just come in about how important are policy implications of the studies and recommendations directed to government bodies. Yeah, if something that you're coming up with is a study that you want funding, and the study is going to make recommendations for how government should change things, absolutely, as long as it fills in with the same visionary view and has an outcome that we think we can adopt. And one final thing is this document that you can download with how to enter. Please do read it. We've put a lot of effort into trying to make sure it's got all the answers. And you know, it'd be a great shame after you put a lot of effort in to your submission if we can't accept it because it's not ticked some of the very few rules. So please do download that, have a read through. If there's anything that isn't very clear, apart from the picture of Ginny, which for some reason has got pixelated, then please do get back to through the website or on phone or an email. I think we've probably taken up everything of everybody's time now, and I'm just looking to see if there's any more questions that come through that haven't. So thank you to the team who've put this together. Thank you to Landor. Thank you to Andrew for splitting up his holiday in Greece and showing us his idea. Thank you to my fellow trustees who've put a lot of effort into this. And thank you for listening. I think, you know, if you haven't got the steer today that we're open for new ideas, if it's wacky, we're interested, but please don't send us just 1,500 words, then I think we've hopefully succeeded. I know, Ginny, if you wanted the final word.
No, thank you very much. That's great.